Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Malachi, the first chapter. Now, Malachi, or the book of Malachi, is generally regarded as, I think, the last book of the Old Testament books, where this is before that intertestamental period, right, where you have books like Ecclesiasticus or the book of Sirach, same book, or the book of Maccabees, right, which were in this intertestamental period, right, in between the Old Testament and the New Testament, right, because in the Old Testament we see even up until Nehemiah's time, the empire that's in rulership was the Persians, right, or the Achaemenid Empire. And then we know that it was the Greeks that took them down, which when you read in the book of Maccabees, it was during the time when the Greeks were in power. And then of course you go into the New Testament, where at this time you have the Romans, which are already established and are in rulership, right, and we know that they are the ones who took down or assimilated the Greeks and subjected them under themselves. So anyway, coming back to Malachi, obviously due to the way the book is written, it's not too, pinpoint clear what exact time, right, in terms of dates that Malachi was living in. But when you look it up, you'll see he's generally placed around the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, maybe a little bit after Nehemiah. But the context of Malachi, or the book of Malachi here, is that you had Israelites, which, if you watch the playlist, right, of the book of Nehemiah, you'll notice that there was still a lot of wickedness that was going on even after we had returned from captivity, right, after the Babylonian captivity. And you had the Lord have mercy and allow Israelites to return from Babylon back to Jerusalem, back to the land of Israel, to rebuild the temple, to rebuild the walls. Even during that time, you had the priests, right? You had some of the priests that were going off, some of the people that were going off. So it's no surprise that after the time of Nehemiah, even after all the reforms that himself and Ezra had instilled in the people, even making that covenant, right, that they made, is no surprise that here Malachi has to address the wickedness that they're still doing, especially when it came here to the sacrifices that they were, the sacrifices and the ordinances when it came to serving the Lord. So as we read, you'll see where we're at with it. Now this is the book of Malachi, chapter 1, verse 1, and it reads, the burden of the word of the Lord Yahweh to Israel by Malachi, which I believe the name, Malachi's name, look it up in the Hebrew. Okay, it is Mala'ak Yah, or Mala'aka Yah, probably Ak Yah. But you have here my messenger, right? You have the word Malak, which is king, but I believe Mala'ak, probably spelled the same way, is angel, right, or messenger in this case. So that's why you have the Yah at the end, which they have it here as my messenger, going into Malachi. So let's go back and continue. Verse 2, I have loved you, saith the Lord Yahweh. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau. So what Malachi is doing here is he's speaking into sort of like a dialogue, a simulation of a dialogue between Israel and the Lord. And this saying where it's, as it says here, yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? So this has to stem from something, right? The Lord wouldn't have Malachi say this for no reason. So you can imagine Israelites, right, saying these kinds of things, right, after looking at the captivity we went through, what the Lord did to us, by letting the Babylonians destroy and pillage and, wreck everything. Okay. But as the Lord is saying here, well, you come from Jacob, right? And Jacob's brother was Esau. And though Esau was the firstborn, the Lord is saying here that he loved Jacob and hated Esau. And by extension, the Lord loves you because you're a descendant of Jacob. But you had Israelites saying here, like it says, wherein hast thou loved us? You love us, but you put us in captivity. But then again, that's why the Lord said, are not your ways unequal? Because here it is, you sin, you commit all these iniquities after you signed a contract that said that if you do these iniquities, you're going to pay these punishments. But then you act as though it's unrighteous for you to go through those judgments. Those are unequal ways. Verse 3, and I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Okay, and when you go into that here, the dragons, I mean, even in the definition here, it goes into like jackals or like creatures that are around desertish type areas. But what the Lord is saying here is, if you look at how Israel turned out versus Esau, okay, even going back to from the actual man Esau and Jacob and their descendants coming on down, at some point when you go into the history of Esau, they ended up going down south, right, and taking over that area, that land, okay, where Petra and all of that, Mount Seir, which I believe originally was inhabited by the Horites. But anyway, they ended up taking that over, but it wasn't really much to it. All right, and then eventually they got driven out of the land anyway. Okay, so as the Lord is saying here, he laid, as it says, his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. And yet look at you, concerning Jacob, that is, the Lord, you went through some captivity. Yeah, you went through some hardships, but now your temple is rebuilt. The walls are rebuilt. You've been established back, right, for the most part. Verse 4, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. And when you look into that word impoverished, right, it basically goes into like broken down, right? Rashash says here, to beat down, to shatter, to beat down. So to be brought low. And that's that rebellious spirit that they have within them. Okay, so here it is, it says we are impoverished, we are broken down, we're beat down, but we will return and build the desolate places, right, and bring it back up. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, the border meaning the territory, the habitation of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Now, what's interesting about this here is that for a period of time, right, you had on a high level of the history of the Edomites, yeah, they were in that land, but you notice that as you go forward in history, there wasn't a heavy presence of them in that land like before. Okay, and so ultimately, right, they got driven out of the land for a period of time. They were brought low, they were chased out, they were, brought down to the where you get the term of cavemen. But then they came back, right? They came back. The Lord, which it was all by the Lord anyway, but they came back. They took over the territories and the identity of the Japhites, and started calling themselves Greeks, started calling themselves Romans. Okay, and they built up a little, but guess what? At the end of the day, as the Lord says, I will throw down. So no matter how many times they come back up and they build up an empire, or they build up some form of rulership or whatnot, the Lord is going to bring that down. Just as, for example, we are today in present day, where Edom has built up this power structure, this system, the beast. And guess what? The Lord is going to throw it down and destroy it. All right. And now it is being revealed, as he says, they'll call them the border of wickedness. Now it is being revealed who these Edomites are, but also what their true colors are, what their true nature is. And the world is starting to see that. And primarily that finger is being pointed at them by the Lord via the prophets to say, hey, these are the wicked of the earth. And these are the ones, as it says here, the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So the Lord is letting them know, look, Esau, going back to the context of Malachi, Esau was a brother of Jacob. Okay. However, look at the state that he's in and that his descendants turned out, and look at how you turned out. These people are so done, they're so cooked. It doesn't matter what they try, I'm gonna keep bringing them down. And they're gonna be labeled, they're gonna be known as the wicked people that I don't like, that I hate. Verse 5, and your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Lord Yahweh will be magnified from the border of Israel. And that meaning, right, it's worded this way, but meaning the magnification of the Lord is gonna be so much so it's gonna surpass past the borders of Israel. Okay, meaning that pretty much the glory of the Lord, or his majesty, or he is going to be glorified throughout the earth, and you're going to see it. Verse 6, a son honoreth his father. So now it's going to go into, now the Lord is going to address his problem with Israel, especially at this time. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts, unto you, O priests, that despise my name. So why is this being said here? Because the priests at this time, okay, were not following the ways of the Lord. Now, when we go back, we jump back to the time of Nehemiah, you'll recall that we read that you had, I think it was Eliashib, which was the high priest, ended up basically cleaning out this room, one of the rooms in the temple that was allocated for, you know, the tithes that would be given to the Levites, right? So the 10th part of everything that they got, it was to be stored in there and it would be distributed to the Levites. This guy had them clear out that room and give it to an Ammonite, right? Tobiah, an Ammonite, to basically dwell there, to chill, to stay there. And on top of that, I think his grandson, right, the grandson of Eliashib, the priest, mind you, he allowed him to be given to marry the daughter of a Moabite. Now, in the law, right, in the book of Deuteronomy, it was explicitly mentioned that the Moabites and Ammonites shouldn't come anywhere near the courts of the Lord's temple. So you can already see here that the priests weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and so that's why they're being called out over here. So as the Lord is saying, look, if a son honors his father, right, the servant honors his master, and if I'm a father, then where's my honor? I don't see it. Right? If I'm a master, where's my fear? Because you people are moving like there is no fear of God. So continuing, saith the Lord of hosts, unto you, O priests, that despise my name. And ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? See, so what the Lord is saying here is your actions. You're doing the things that are showing me that you despise my name. You're not honoring me the way I should be. And then you turn around and ask, oh, when did we despise your name? You know, when did we pollute thee? But as it says, right, in that day, or in that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible. And the table of the Lord, or contemptible here, meaning let's just read it from here. Right, despised, disdain, to regard with contempt, vile, worthless. So the Lord is saying the way that you're moving, right, concerning the charge or the duties that you are to perform, going into the sacrifices, right, and there were a lot of things the priests had to do, right? They had to have the shewbread, nice, fresh, made ready on the table, right? They had to, offer the morning and evening oblation, amongst all the other kinds of sacrifices that needed to be done and offerings that needed to be done. But as we continue to read, you'll start to see what it is, in fact, that they were doing, and why the Lord says here that they polluted his altar. And as it says, in that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible, because you're treating the service of the Lord as though it's worthless. Verse 8, and if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? The blind and the lame are talking about animals, not people. But remember that when the Lord said, look, when you come to offer, whether it's a lamb or a goat or whatever it is, you better give me the best of the flock, the fatling, without blemish. Right? Let's see if we can find that in here, in the law. But it's in there because the Lord is very particular when it comes to serving him. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Here's an example, right? Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3, or even verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, if any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord Yahweh, ye shall bring your offering of the cattle, even of the herd and of the flock. If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. Meaning that male should be on point, no injuries, no blindness, no, not being maimed, right? Not being, deformed in any way, shape, or form. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation of the Lord. Right, and then it goes on. But the point that I wanted to make here is without blemish. And when you go into all the various kinds of sacrifices that the Lord, requested here, they were all of that same requirement, right? If you jump down to verse 10, it says, and if his offering be of the flocks, namely of the sheep or of the goats, for a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring it a male, what? Without blemish. So when you go back to the book of Malachi chapter 1, you see that that's not what they were doing. And that's why in verse 8 it's saying here, if you offer the blind for a sacrifice, is it not evil? When the Lord had told you that they should be without blemish. And what you'll find out is, it's not that they didn't have any. It's not that all their cattle or all their sacrifices just happened to be blemished. It's that these were the ones that they brought to the Lord. They would rather keep the best one for themselves. And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee? So here it is. Remember that there's a certain portion that was allocated to the governor, right? Of cattle or whatnot for consumption. So he's saying here, imagine you bring this sheep right here, or you take it to the governor. This sheep is missing a leg, or is missing an eye, or it looks all deformed and shit. See if he's gonna be okay with that. Like, even I'll use an example today. You go to the store, right? If it's or even to a butcher or a farm, and you want, I don't know, sheep or a lamb or something, and you're looking at them, right? You're looking at the lamb, and you're like, yeah, I want that one right there. And the dude goes in there and goes all the way to the back. He goes to get the lamb that has one eye is bigger than the other, is missing one ear, is limping, right? Because it's missing one leg. It probably, I don't know if it has prosthetics on or whatnot. The tail is cut in half, and you're looking at this joint, and the joint is looking at you, but one eye is looking the other way. And that's the one he goes to. You gonna hold on. That's not what I said. I want the other one over there. and yet this man brings this to you. How are you gonna feel about that? Right? Like, I came here and I'm paying for this, and you're gonna bring me this shit? No, right? You're gonna look in there, and you're gonna want the nicest one. Even when you go shopping, right? And if it's like, if it's chicken or whatever it is, bread, and it's behind the glass, or they gotta get it for you, and you looking through, you looking for the one that suits your eye the best. And typically you're not going for the one that doesn't look too good. You're going for the stocky, meaty one. I want that one right in the back over there. So point being, nobody wants something that's that's not good. So how much more for the Lord? So continuing, right? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person? Saith the Lord of hosts. And now I pray you, beseech God that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your persons, saith the Lord of hosts? So basically Malachi is saying, go ahead and go and pray to the Most High on top of that, and ask him to be gracious unto you. After bringing this kind of sacrifice to him, right? When it says this hath been by your means, it's saying after this kind of offering you've brought to the Lord, go and pray to him to be gracious to you, and you tell me if he's gonna take that prayer seriously. Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle a fire on mine altar for naught. Right? So, meaning here, now when you look in these other translations, they'll say, right, let's look at some of these, for example. It says here, this one is fine, right? But NLT, for example, it says, how I wish one of you would shut the temple doors so that these worthless sacrifices could not be offered, right? And that's one way to look at it. But here it sounds more as though the Lord is saying, like, and as we read on down, it'll echo the same sentiment. So reading the NKJV, it says, who is there even among you who would shut the doors so that you would not kindle fire on my altar in vain? I have no pleasure in you. Right? Now, when you deal with the ordinances here, there were two kinds of altars, right? You had the altar of incense, and then you had the altar of sacrifice. The altar of incense being in the holy place, the altar of sacrifice being outside. And you had to offer a specific kind of fire, right? And that's what would be used to burn the incense in the temple. Now remember, this is what one of the sons of Aaron went and messed up and offered strange fire unto the Lord and ended up getting slain by the Lord, right? But here it is, you have coming back here, as the Lord is saying, who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught, right? So one way to look at it here is like, when the priests here were doing these things that they should do, right, for the Lord here, it's almost as though, they do it as though there's no value in it. Just put it like that, right? So who would willingly, right? And I think that one of the definitions had it that way, or one of the translations had it that way, and I kind of like that one. Let's see if I can find it. Actually, no, I think it was in the definition. Let's go in there. So into the interlinear, right? Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Yeah, actually, it might have been one of the. Anyway, I can't find it right now, but I'd like that translation a little better. Maybe I can find it in here. Yeah, can't find it. It's fine. Anyway, then you have the other perspective, right, from the other translation here, which is in this example, right? How I wish one of you would shut the temple doors so that these worthless sacrifices could not be offered. And that's a very like, like almost like a painful, disgraceful thing to hear, that your God is saying that, right? The God that you're offering these sacrifices to is saying that, and in every right that he has to say that, right? Because Israel stooped so low to where, coming to the sacrifices of the Lord, they got so tired, right, of doing things the right way, that they were just doing whatever, right? When it came to the Lord, they were just doing whatever, giving him whatever. And you can sort of relate that to today as well. You got certain individuals that when it comes to doing the work of the Lord, they grow fatigued, and then they just start to give the Lord whatever, right? Instead of giving him the best and taking their time and making sure they're doing the best, it's just whatever. Here. That's like offering those blemished, those blind and maimed and like I said, blemished offerings upon the Lord's altar. So, continuing in verse 10, right? I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. For from the rising of the sun, even onto the going down. So now you start to see why it is that we need Yahushua, right? That we needed him to come and reconcile us back to the Father, because you could see how that rift was it was like there was a wedge in there that was driving it greater and greater and greater, being the wedge being the behavior, the wickedness of Israel. Verse 11, right? For from the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering. For my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, ultimately, in the kingdom, this is going to be, in full effect, right? Because we know, as the scriptures say, everybody's going to know the Lord, or at least everybody's going to serve Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, right? There's a precept that mentions how the nations are going to come to us to say, let us go, to the house of Jacob and let them teach us of their ways. Okay, so ultimately, right, in the kingdom, everybody's going to serve the Lord, but even starting now, right, when you deal with the name of the Lord being great among the Gentiles, that's not talking about, right, and at least starting now, that's not talking about the actual heathens, but rather the Israelites that are in those foreign lands. And that hence the Lord here is using future tense, right? My name shall be great among the Gentiles, because we know ain't no heathens out here offering incense, pure incense, unto the name of the Lord right now. Okay, but as I mentioned, what the Lord is saying here in verse 11 is, ultimately, right, this is what's going to happen, right? Ultimately, my name is going to be glorified. My fame is going to go out through the earth again, and everybody is going to reverence and going to serve me, right? My name is going to be great amongst pretty much everybody, right? Amongst the nations, obviously starting first and foremost with Israel. Verse 12, but ye have profaned it. That very name that's going to be the brand name, the star name of everything, you have profaned it, in that meaning you've polluted it. In that ye say, the table of the Lord Yahweh is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Once again, going into vile or worthless. And so what the Lord is saying here is basically Israel is not regarding, and when I say Israel in particular, I'm referring here to the southern kingdom, right? And even more particular to the priests who are being addressed here, saying that they don't regard the Lord, and their lack of willingness to serve the Lord the proper way shows that, and what that reflects is likened unto them here, saying, as it says, even his meat is contemptible. Verse 13, ye said also, behold, what a weariness it is, like what a burden, and ye have snuffed at it, saith the Lord of hosts, and ye brought that which was torn. See, so when serving the Lord, right? And doing the, say for example, sacrifices, as it says, what a weariness it is. When something is weary, right? Or when you are weary, you're tired, you're like fed up, in this case, right? They're just, and when it says, and he have snuffed at it, you go into the word snuffed, it goes into to exhale, to breathe out. So now we would attribute that, or an example would be like when somebody gets fed up, or you tell somebody, imagine, right, when you were a kid, you're playing video games and whatnot, and then your mom or your father comes and says, go and clean the room, or go and mow the lawn, or they call you ahead of time and say, have you done X, Y, and Z? And it's just so burdensome. You're like, like, man, yeah, that's what the Lord is saying here. This is the reaction. This is the energy you're given when it comes to serving the Lord, which is why, as it says, saith the Lord of hosts, and ye brought that which was torn. Meaning the offering, the sacrifice, is that which was torn, meaning it's not in perfect condition, it's not in good shape. Like somebody who, like if you had a servant, right, or a butler or a maid or whoever, and they just get so tired of serving you that now they go and make food for you. They come and the food is still, kind of cold, or the rice is not fully cooked, or the chicken is not entirely seasoned properly as where it used to be. It says here, and ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith the Lord? But cursed be the deceiver. Why? Which hath in his flock a male, and voweth, and sacrificeth unto the Lord a corrupt thing. Remember, when we read in the book of Leviticus, the Lord said, when you're bringing your offering, and whether it's for whatever kind of offering it is, it should be a male without blemish. And so the Lord is saying here, you're bringing me torn, lame, sick offerings, and meanwhile you got a male in your flock. And that's why it says, cursed be the deceiver, because you have this here, but here it is, you're sacrificing unto me a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. So in other words, do you know who I am? That you out here, you're saving the best for yourself, and what I'm requiring of you, you're giving me the bottom end, right, the short end of the stick. And here I am, as it says, the great king, right? My name is dreadful among the heathen. Maybe you haven't heard about me. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the book of Malachi, the first chapter. So that gives you the layout sort of what's going on here. What's the state of Israel right now. When you read about it in secular history, they'll let you know, like at this point the wall is likely already built, which was done by Nehemiah. The temple is built up and everything, hence sacrifices are being spoken of here. But the problem now is with the priests, right, and the people being corrupt and not performing these ordinances in the right way. Anyway, with that, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.